Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will embark on a 5-nation visit to Ghana, Trinidad and Tobago, Argentina, Brazil and Namibia on 2nd of July, also to attend BRICS summit in Brazil. Donald Trump's big beautiful bill faces true test in House of Representatives. Senators to start voting on a list of amendments to the bill. Europe swelters as early summer heat breaks records, triggering health alerts and wildfires. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will begin a 5-nations tour from July 2 to 9. PM will attend the 17th BRICS summit in Brazil, followed by a state visit. In a special briefing by the Ministry of External Affairs, Secretary Economic Relations Damu Ravi highlighted that India will be holding the chair of the BRICS next year.
The 17th BRICS summit is taking place on 6th and 7th. Honorable Prime Minister will arrive on the 5th evening. But the main program is on the 6th. The Brazil's agenda, more or less, is encapsulating the ideas of the Global South. And these are more or less in alignment with India's positions. And lastly, India will be holding the chair of the BRICS next year, and which is why, in this context, Honorable Prime Minister's visit is even more important.
Addressing the press conference, Secretary East P. Kumaran said that bilateral agreements between India and Brazil will be signed on renewable energy, agricultural research and security cooperation during the Prime Minister's visit. He also highlighted trade between the two countries.
On the trade front, India's trade with Brazil is the largest compared to any other country in Latin America. It had reached 16.6 billion in 2022-23. And following the drop in oil and gas prices, it is now around 12.2 billion, with India enjoying a trade surplus as we export goods worth $6.7 billion to Brazil and import goods worth $5.4 billion. Both leaders have set a bilateral trade target of 20 billion during their last meeting in November 2024. During their forthcoming meeting in Brasilia, the two leaders are expected to discuss ways to strengthen and diversify bilateral trade, including through expansion of the India-Mercosur PTA, as Brazil will be holding the chairship of Mercosur from 1st July 2025.
Prime Minister Modi will undertake a visit to Ghana from July 2 and 3. This will mark a prime ministerial visit from India to Ghana after 3 decades.
Honorable Prime Minister will be visiting Ghana on 2nd and 3rd July. This visit is happening after 30 years. There will be delegation-level talks during which the bilateral relations will be reviewed and also discuss various ways to strengthen and deepen bilateral relations. Honorable Prime Minister will have a one-on-one meeting with his counterpart. Then there will be a banquet dinner in honor of Honorable Prime Minister. The next day, Prime Minister will be addressing the Parliament, and he also will be interacting with the Indian community there.
Prime Minister Modi will also pay an official visit to Trinidad and Tobago from July 3rd and 4th. The visit is the first bilateral visit at the prime ministerial level to Trinidad and Tobago since 1999.
This marks the first visit by Prime Minister Modi to TNT or Trinidad and Tobago as Prime Minister, and is the first bilateral visit by an Indian Prime Minister to TNT since 1999. The visit comes at an opportune time as this year in 2025 the country is commemorating 180 years of the arrival of Indian immigrants to Trinidad and Tobago. This shared history forms the bedrock of our close and enduring people-to-people ties.
In the third leg of his visit, PM Modi will visit Argentina from July 4 and 5 at the invitation of President Javier Milei. This will be the first bilateral visit by an Indian Prime Minister in 57 years.
Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi is visiting Argentina on 4th and 5th July on an official visit. PM has travelled earlier to Argentina for a G20 meeting in 2018. But this will be the first bilateral visit by an Indian PM in the last 57 years. Argentina holds the world's second largest shale gas reserves and the fourth largest shale oil reserves, along with, of course, substantial conventional oil and gas deposits, making it a potentially important energy partner for India in the future.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar is set to visit the United States from June 30 to July 2nd at the invitation of US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. During the visit, EAM Jaishankar will participate in the next edition of the Quad Foreign Ministers meeting scheduled for 1st of July in Washington, D.C. The Quad Foreign Ministers will continue discussions from their last meeting held in Washington, D.C. on 21st of January 2025. They'll exchange views on regional and global developments, particularly those concerning the Indo-Pacific, and review the progress made on various Quad initiatives in the run-up to the Quad Leaders Summit, which will be hosted by India. The ministers are also expected to deliberate on new proposals aimed at advancing the shared vision of a free and open Indo-Pacific. The minister will also travel to New York on June 30 to inaugurate an exhibition titled The Human Cost of Terrorism at the United Nations headquarters. The exhibition will highlight the devastating toll of heinous terrorist acts around the world and the steps taken by international community to combat terrorism. As global leaders gather in Sevilla for the UN Development Meet, India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is leading the Indian delegation. During her visit, Finance Minister Sitharaman will deliver a keynote address at the International Business Forum Leadership Summit in Sevilla. She is also set to hold bilateral talks on the sidelines with senior ministers from Germany, Peru and New Zealand, as well as the President of the European Investment Bank, aiming to strengthen India's economic partnerships and push for inclusive growth. World leaders, CEOs and top officials from international bodies gathered in Sevilla, Spain on Monday for the first plenary meetings of the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development. The UN Development Meet in Sevilla aims to shape the future of global development finance for the next decade with a call for solidarity to address poverty, disease and climate change. High on the agenda are climate financing, global debt reform and ways to channel both public and private capital to bridge deep-rooted inequalities.
We have gathered because billions of people's and lives depend on the decisions we make these days, on whether we choose ambition over paralysis, solidarity over indifference, or courage over convenience.
During the opening ceremony, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez invited developed countries to embrace solidarity to meet the SDG 2030 targets. Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned that development financing is stalling and called for resources to be mobilized quickly.
We must get resources flowing fast. Countries must lead by mobilizing domestic resources and investing in areas of greatest impact: schools, healthcare, social protection, decent work, and renewable energy.
Mizoram's capital, Aizawl, is set to receive its first ever rail connectivity with the completion of the 51.38 km Barabi-Sarang broad gauge rail line. The Barabi-Sarang rail line in Mizoram is fully complete and awaits inauguration. Connecting Aizawl to India's rail network via Silchar, the project includes 48 tunnels and multiple bridges, marking a major boost to northeast connectivity and development. Despite facing challenging geographical conditions, the rail line has successfully connected Aizawl to the broader railway network. This project is a testament to the government's commitment to improving infrastructure in the northeastern states. US President Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill has passed a key Senate vote. On Monday, senators are scheduled to start voting on a list of amendments to the bill. Here's a report on the details of the weekend sessions held on the same.
US is debating the big, beautiful bill. The Senate Republicans are moving forward on President Donald Trump's sweeping tax cut and spending bill. In a marathon weekend session, the Senate advanced the bill with numerous amendments before final passage. It will then be returned to the Republicans in the House of Representatives for final passage before Trump can sign it into law. The Congressional Budget Office has estimated that the bill would add $3.3 trillion from 2025 to 2034. This adds $800 billion to the bill passed last month by the House of Representatives. Republicans have rejected the CBO's method to calculate the cost of legislation, whereas the Democrats argued that the bill favors the wealthy and risks social programs.
Republicans are about to pass the single most expensive bill in U.S. history to give tax breaks to billionaires while taking away Medicaid, SNAP benefits, and good-paying jobs for millions of people. CBO just this morning said it will explode the debt by $3.3 trillion. And they said it will likely cost more over time. More than that, closer to $4 trillion. Rather than be honest with the American people about the true costs of their billionaire giveaways, Republicans are doing something the Senate has never done before, deploying fake math and accounting gimmicks to hide the true cost of their bill. Look, Republicans can use whatever budgetary gimmicks they want to try and make the math work on paper, but you can't paper over the real-life consequences of adding tens of trillions to the debt.
In a 51-49 vote to the bill, the Senate only narrowly advanced the tax cut, immigration, border, and military spending bill on Saturday. Taking to social media, Trump hailed the vote as a great victory for his great, big, beautiful bill. Senate bill has incorporated many changes to the one passed by the House. The Senate version of the bill makes permanent an array of tax cuts that the House version would have allowed to expire in a few years. The Senate version raises to $40,000 the maximum deduction for state and local tax payments with annual inflation adjustments. That deduction will revert to its current $10,000 level after 2029. In the federal income tax deduction, the Senate bill would provide $6,000 per year for people over 65, whereas the earlier House version would have offered a $4,000 deduction. Both would end after 2028. The Senate bill would roll back clean energy incentives created by President Joe Biden's 2022 Inflation Reduction Act and would also propose a new tax on these projects if they cannot prove their products are made without Chinese parts, as well as a new tax break for coal production. The Senate version of the bill on Medicaid would clamp down on provider taxes and delay the implementation of these changes until 2028. The Senate also included an extra $25 billion for rural hospitals. The Senate bill would raise the nation's debt ceiling by $5 trillion, but the House version had called for a $4 trillion increase. Both the House and Senate initially included a provision that would have allowed the U.S. to impose new taxes on residents, businesses, and other entities from countries that are found to impose unfair foreign taxes. If the Senate passes the bill, it will then return to the House of Representatives for final passage before Trump can sign it into law. Bureau Report, DD India.
Days after US President Donald Trump called off trade talks, Canada has rescinded the digital services tax targeting US technology firms in a bid to advance trade negotiations with the US. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and Trump will resume trade negotiations in order to agree on a deal by July 21st. On Friday, Trump abruptly cut off trade talks with Canada over its tax targeting US technology firms, saying that it was a blatant attack and that he would set a new tariff rate on Canadian goods within the next week. The tax was 3% of the digital services revenue a firm takes in from Canadian users above $20 million in a calendar year, and payments will be retroactive to 2022. Canada is the second largest U.S. trading partner after Mexico and the largest buyer of U.S. exports. It bought $349.4 billion of U.S. goods last year and exported $412.7 billion to the U.S., according to U.S. Census Bureau data. France, Germany and Britain on Monday condemned threats against the head of the UN nuclear watchdog after Iran rejected its request to visit nuclear facilities bombed by Israel and the United States. Tehran has accused Rafael Grossi, head of International Atomic Energy Agency, of betrayal of his duties for not condemning the Israeli and US strikes on Iran's nuclear sites, and Iranian lawmakers this week voted to suspend cooperation with the agency. Foreign Ministers Jean-Noel Barrot, Johan Wadefool and David Lammy in a joint statement called on Iranian authorities to refrain from any steps to cease cooperation with the IAEA and urged Iran to take all necessary steps to ensure the safety and security of IAEA personnel. On Friday, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said on X that Grossi's insistence on visiting the bombed sites was meaningless and possibly even malign in intent. And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Iran decries destructive conduct by IAEA chief. Two firefighters killed in Idaho ambush, suspect found dead. Basketball legend Lebron James exercises $52.6 million player option to remain with LA Lakers, set to play record 23rd NBA season.
The land of forests, nature's hidden jewel. Jharkhand is a traveler's paradise. Get ready for a sensory extravaganza, complete with ancient traditions and world-class lifestyles, breathtaking scenic beauties and heart-stopping adventure. Thousands of years of faith preserved in magnificent temples, marvels of new age infrastructure.
Can I resist?
An abundance of prehistoric heritage flowing through generations.
I've heard so much about the expertise behind this vibrant Sorai art.
Discover new horizons. Discover yourself. Discover Jharkhand. Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
You're watching DD India Live. I am Siddharth Bharadwaj. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian told his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron that Tehran halted cooperation with the UN nuclear watchdog due to what he called the agency chief's destructive behavior towards the Islamic Republic, his office said Monday. According to a presidency statement, Pezeshkian told Macron in a phone call late Sunday that the action taken by parliament members is a natural response to the unjustified, unconstructive and destructive conduct of the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency. Britain's High Court on Monday ruled that the government's decision to allow the export of F-35 jet parts to Israel is lawful, despite accepting that they could be used in breach of international humanitarian law. The ruling gave a huge relief for government ministers, brought to a close a 20-month battle to ban all UK arms sales to Israel. The United Kingdom has assessed that Israel was not committed to complying with international humanitarian law in relation to humanitarian access and the treatment of detainees as the basis for its decision. The Jerusalem District Court cancelled Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's corruption trial hearings this week, accepting his request citing classified diplomatic and security grounds. Netanyahu, indicted in 2019 for bribery, fraud and breach of trust, denies the charges, calling them a left-wing witch hunt. Trump claimed a Gaza ceasefire is near, though details remain unclear. The ruling aligns with heightened efforts to resolve the Gaza conflict post-Iran war. The decision followed US President Donald Trump's social media post suggesting the trial could hinder Netanyahu's negotiations with Hamas and Iran. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has signed a decree on the country's withdrawal from the Ottawa Convention, which bans the production and use of anti-personnel mines, the presidential website said. And in fact, in a video message, Zelensky emphasized that Russia was never a member of the convention, not even during its conflict with Ukraine. A senior Ukrainian lawmaker said that parliamentary approval is still needed to withdraw from the treaty. Ukraine ratified the convention in 2005. A strange incident was reported from the northwestern US state of Idaho, where a gunman ambushed and shot dead 2 firefighters responding to a forest fire. The motive for the shooting was not known, and police did not provide any details on the suspect, saying officers were still working to identify the slain man. The suspect was found using cell phone location information, and his body was removed by a SWAT team as the fire approached.
We had a cell phone activation that was in the same spot since about 3:16, and that it was in the same area, and we honed in on that cell phone, and we saw that there was a male, appeared to be deceased, with a weapon nearby. So we have currently one dead shooter. Based on the preliminary investigation that was being conducted.
The bushfire is still burning in the city. Around 56,000 people, which is near the border with Washington state. The Reserve Bank of India today released its June 2025 edition of the Financial Stability Report, offering a deep dive into the health of the Indian financial system despite global uncertainties and policy shifts. The report paints a largely optimistic picture of India's economic resilience and financial sector strength. Volatility in global financial markets, especially in core government bond segments, continues to be influenced by shifting policy directions and geopolitical developments. High public debt and elevated asset prices are flagged as factors that could amplify potential shocks. Despite the global headwinds, India's domestic financial system remains stable, supported by strong bank and non-bank balance sheets, accommodative monetary policy, and low market volatility. Scheduled commercial banks have shown robust financial health with historically low non-performing assets, strong earnings, and substantial capital buffers. Non-banking financial companies also remain resilient, backed by improving asset quality, healthy earnings, and sizable capital cushions. The insurance sector continues to maintain a consolidated solvency ratio above the minimum threshold, signaling stability in the sector. Stress tests further confirm the resilience of mutual funds and clearing corporations, indicating broader financial market stability. Minister of Ports, Shipping and Waterways Sarbananda Sonowal addressed the ASEAN-India Cruise Dialogue 2025 in Chennai on Monday. The minister said that India's Act East policy is ushering in unprecedented growth in connectivity, commerce and cooperation between India and the Southeast Asian nations.
In the last 11 years, under the dynamic leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, in India, we could able to achieve a lot of milestones, particularly in the sea cruise, because of the exemplary initiative, policy program, and timely implementations of different projects. We could able to develop world-class facilities for the cruise passengers by developing the world-class terminal.
Rear Admiral V. Gapati, an accomplished flag officer of the Indian Navy, has assumed the command of the Military Institute of Technology, Pune, under the headquarters Integrated Defence Staff. During his illustrious naval career, Rear Admiral Gapati has held several key operational staff and instructional appointments, demonstrating a rare blend of operational insight, institutional leadership, and future-oriented thinking. He is an alumnus of College of Defence Management, National Defence College and Defence Services Staff College. Basketball legend Lebron James will become the first player in NBA history to play in 23 seasons when he returns to the Los Angeles Lakers in 2025-26. James, the NBA's career leading scorer, is exercising his $52.6 million player option for the upcoming season. It's not immediately known if James desires to play past the upcoming season. James, who has played in 1,562 regular season games, is 50 shy of breaking Hall of Fame member Robert Parrish's NBA record. He is 21 all-time, in fact, he is 21-time All-Star, 4-time League MVP and 4-time NBA champion. James entered the NBA as an 18-year-old after being selected #1 in 2003 NBA draft by the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, and you can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.